Hello teacher, now I will talk about the chapter 1 Operation and Supply Chain Management. As you can see on the slide, you see the mind map of chapter 1. And in this chapter, I will talk about the differences between services and goods. There are five essential differences between services and goods. The first is that a service is an intangible process that can be weighed or measured, whereas a good is a tangible output of a process that has physical dimensions. This distinction has important business implications because a service innovation, unlike a product innovation, can be patented. Thus, a company with a new concept must depend rapidly before competitors copy its procedures. Serving intangible purity also presents a problem for customers because, unlike with a physical product, customers can try it out and test it before purchase. The second is that a service requires some degree of interaction with the customer for it to be a service. The interaction may be brief, but it's more easy for the service to be complete. Where face-to-face service is required, the service facility must be designed to handle the customer presence. Goods, on the other hand, are generally produced in a facility separate from the customer. They can be made according to a production schedule that is efficient for the company. The third difference is that services, with the big exception of hard technology and information technology, are inherently heterogeneous. They vary from day to day and even hour to hour as a function of the attitude of the customers and the servers. Thus, even highly scripted work such as file in call centers can produce unpredictable outcomes. Goods, in contrast, can be produced to meet very tight specification day in and day out with essentially zero variability. In those cases where a defective good is produced, it can be rewarded for or scrapped. And the fourth difference is that services as a process are perishable and time dependent. And unlike goods, they can be stored. They cannot compete last week for an air flight or a day on campus. And fifth, the specification of a service are defined and evaluated as a package of features that fit the five senses. These four features are supporting facility, facilitating goods, explicit services, and implicit services. And about the example of goods are automobiles, appliances, and clothing. Example of services are legal advice, house cleaning, and consulting advice. Next is about the chapter 2, operation and supply chain management strategy. And as you can see on the slide, this is the my map of chapter 2. In this chapter, I will talk about the triple bottom line. The triple bottom line consider evaluating the firm against social, economic, and environmental criteria. About the social responsibility, this pertains to fair and beneficial business practices toward labor, the community, and the region in which a firm conducts its business. A triple bottom line company seeks to benefit its employee, the community, and other social entities that are impacted by the firm's existence. Economic prosperity, the firm is obligated to compensate shareholders who provide capital through stock purchases and other financial instruments via a competitive return on investment. The company's strategy should promote growth and bring long-term value to this group in the form of profit. Environmental stewardship. This refers to the firm's impact on the environment. The company should protect the environment as much as possible or at least cause no harm. And in this chapter, we take a consumer-centered approach. Issues associated with people and the environment are led to an individual case approach. Depending on the country, industry, and the scope of the firm, these other issues vary widely and it could be difficult to provide a general approach for analysis. The issue and their relationship to operation and supply chain management are very real. However, we anticipate they will become even more relevant in the future. And about the example, cascade engineering, for example, is a private firm that do not need to file the detailed financial paperwork. A public company has identified the following variable for their triple bottom line scorecard. About the economic is amount of taxes paid and social, average hour of training employee from welfare to career retention, charitable contribution, and environmental safety exceeding rate, loss restricted workday rate, sale dollars per kilowatt hours, greenhouse gas emission, yield per consumer and industrial recycled material, water consumption, and amount of waste to landfill. Next, I will talk about the Chapter 4 project. And this is the mind map of Chapter 4. You can see on the slide. And in Chapter 4, I will talk about the critical path method. The critical path method is more widely used abroad to scheduling projects. There are a number of variations on the path abroad. The goal is to find the earliest time that the entire project can be completed. Identify each activity to be done in the project and estimate how long it will take to complete each activity. And step 2, determine the required sequence of activity and construct a network reflecting the precedence relationship. Step 3, determine the critical path, and step 4, determine the early start finish and late start finish schedule. And as you can see on the slide, this is an example of critical path method. About the chapter 7, you can see on the slide, this is the mind map of chapter 7, manufacturing processes. And in this chapter, I will talk about the production processes. Manufacturing processes are used to make tangible items. At a high level, the processes can be divided into 3 steps. Sourcing the part needed, making the item, and sending the item to the customers. As you can see on the slide, we illustrate the source step where parts are procured from one or more suppliers, the make step where manufacturing takes place, and the deliver step where the product is shipped to the customers. Depending on the strategy of the firm, the capability of manufacturing, and the needs of customers, these activities are organized to minimize cost while meeting the competitive priority necessary to attract customer orders. For example, in the case of consumer products such as television or clothes, customers normally want this product on demand for quick delivery from a local department store, and the manufacturer of these products will build them ahead of time in anticipation of demand and ship them to the retail store where they are carried in inventory until they are sold. At the other end of the spectrum are custom products such as military airplanes that are ordered with very specific use in mind and that need to be designed and then built to the design. In the case of an airplane, the time needed to respond to a customer order, called the lead time, could easily be needed to respond to a customer order, called the lead time, so could easily be years compared to only a few minutes for the television. Next is, as you can see on the slide, it is my map of chapter 9, design service processes. And in this chapter, I will talk about the service valve stuffing polkayos. Polkayos is procedures that block a mistake from becoming a service defect. There are many applications of polkayos to services as well. They can be classified into one method, physical or visual contact method, and what we call the 3T, the task to pin the treatment according to the customer and the changeable or environmental features of the service facility. Finally, service polkayos often must be applied to fail staffing, the action of the customer as well as the service worker. And polkayo examples include Hyde Park and Museum Park, intended to used to by surgeons to ensure that no instruments are left in the patient, change to configure waiting lists, take a number system, alarm on ATM to warn people to take the car out of the machine, papers are written to make sure customers do not miss their table calls, mirror on telephones to ensure a smiling voice, reminder comes for appointments, lock on airline, lavatory doors that activate life inside, small gifts in command card envelopes to encourage customers to provide feedback about a service and pictures of what a clean room looks like for kindergarten children. And as a final comment, although the procedure can guarantee the level of aero rotation found in the factory, they still can reduce such error in many service situations. Next is the mind map of Chapter 15, Logistics, Distribution and Transportation. And in this chapter, I will talk about the transportation modes. A key decision area is deciding how material will be transported. There are six widely recognized modes of transportation: highway, water, air, rail, pipelines, and hand delivery. Highway or truck. Actually, few products are moved without some highway transportation. The highway offers great flexibility for moving goods to virtually any location not separated by water. Size of the product, white, and liquid output can be accommodated with this mode. Next is water ship. Every high capacity and very low cost but transit time are slow and large areas of the world are not directly accessible to water carriers. This mode is especially useful for food items such as oil, coal, and chemical products. Air, fast but expensive. Small line, expensive items are more appropriate for this mode of transportation. Railroad trains. This is a fairly low-cost alternative, but transit time can be long and may be subject to variability. The suitability of rail can vary depending on the rail infrastructure. The European infrastructure is highly developed, making this an attractive alternative compared to trucks, while in the United States, the railroad infrastructure has declined over the last 50 years, making it less attractive. About the pipelines, this is highly specialized and limited to liquid, gases, and solids in slurry forms. No packaging is needed and the cost per mile are low. The initial cost to build a pipeline is very high. And the last one is hand delivery. This is the last step in many supply chains. Getting the product in the customer's hand is often a slow and costly activity due to the high labor content. And we move to the last chapter, inventory management. And in this chapter, I will talk about the purposes of inventory. All firms, including JIT operation, keep a supply of inventory for the following reasons. First, to maintain independence of operation. A supply of material at a work center allows that center flexibility in operation. For example, because there are costs for making each new production setup. This inventory allows management to reduce the numbers of setup. Therefore, it is desirable to have a collection of several parts within the workstation so that shorter performance time can compensate for longer performance time. This way, the average output can be fairly stable. Second, to make variation in product demand. If the demand for a product is known precisely, it may be possible to produce the product to exactly meet the demand. Usually, however, demand is not complete now and a safety or buffer stock must be maintained to absorb variation. Third, to allow flexibility in production scheduling. A stock of inventory relieves the pressure on the production system to get the goods out. This causes longer lead times, which permit production planning for smoother flow and lower cost operation through larger lot size production. High setup costs, for example, favor producing a larger number of units once the setup has been made. 4. To provide a safeguard for variation in raw material delivery time. When material is ordered from a vendor, delays can occur for a variety of variations in shipping time. A shortage of material at the vendor's plant causing backlog. An unexpected strike at the vendor plant or at one of the shipping company. A lost order or a shipment of incorrect or defective material. And fifth, to take advantage of economic purchase order side. There are costs to place an order, labor, phone calls, typing, postage, and so on. Therefore, the larger each order is, the fewer the orders that need to be reading. Also, shipping costs favor larger orders. The larger the segment, the lower the per unit cost. And finally, many other domain-specific reasons. Depending on the situation, inventory may need to be carried. For example, in transit inventory is material being moved from the suppliers to customers and depends on the order quantity and the transit lead time. Another example is inventory that is bought in anticipation of price changes, such as fuel or jet planes, or semiconductor for computers. And this is end of my presentation. Thanks teacher for listening.